Welcome everyone, Dr. Lorre here. I am so glad that you're here, and we're going to change things up a little bit. Today I'm going to record a short video for us to connect in a more personal manner. Newsletters are great, and the written word obviously is wonderful. I authored a book, and so obviously I'm a lover of words, but sometimes we just need heart-to-heart human connection, especially in difficult times such as this. So I'm going to record a short video for us. Please let me know if you like the format, and I will continue doing it. I'm going to start with bringing us together as a global community. We will do a short MicroDoses Matters practice to make sure that it's like the MicroDoses Matters practice is like getting your steps in for the day. We need to give frequent opportunities for our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, midbrain and vagus nerve in particular, to be nurtured and nourished in a way that keeps us regulated and stable in our window of tolerance so that we are grounded and centered and able to enjoy our lives and be focused and socially connect with one another and be fully present. And so that's how our physiology helps us to be present and mindful. But oftentimes in our workplaces that is not supported. And in fact, the opposite happens. And nurses, healers, and helping professionals are traumatized daily in their roles. And so I am here to help you undo that conditioning, that programming. So we will do a MicroDoses Matters practice, which you can just then incorporate however you want into your day. And then we'll have a little talk about what has happened in the academy and the nurses that I have worked with this week. And so let us begin first by coming together as the international nursing community. I'm going to chime the Tibetan bells 3 times. And just listen to the sound until you can hear it no more, and then just observe the silence in between the sounds. And we will come together now. I will do this 3 times as a global nursing community, as a global community of healers and helping professionals who are committed to healing ourselves and one another and ushering in a new world order where professional safety and well-being is prioritized. Here we are. Beautiful. And now for our MicroDoses Matters practice. Remember, the goal of this practice is to nurture and nourish our nervous system as frequently as we can throughout the day, taking note of those naturally occurring transition gaps. When you're getting out of the car, when you're closing the door as you enter the restroom, as you're sitting down to chart or send an email. For me, it was right before I sat down here to meet with you. So all of those naturally occurring, I call them micro transitions, we can leverage those to our advantage. None of this is going to take extra time. It's just being mindful of how you're using the time that you have in the day. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to try and get this done in 30 seconds or less, which is always the goal for the MicroDoses Matters practice, so that you can use them even on the busiest of days in your personal or professional life. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one, is to just observe that you are feeling safe in your physical space. And if you are not feeling safe right now, then I am calling in Archangel Michael to put a blue dome of protection around each and every person who is participating in this healing moment. And we are all safe, seen, supported, and so sincerely loved as we now take the second step to ground and center, feeling your feet on the earth below, whether that's the floor, your shoes, but feel that connection to Mother Gaia, who is holding you and can receive all of your emotions, all of any static or negative energies that are about you or within you, just releasing those all to beautiful Mother Gaia, who is holding and loving us and transmuting those into light and love. This third step, safety to our nervous system. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to take our hands and we're just going to put each finger to our thumb. This is something that can be done with your hand in your pocket or under a desk or while you're walking down the hall. And this is just bringing awareness back into your body that you are safe in your nervous system. All right, so I just did that 2 times each hand, and then the last part is to just place our both hands over our beautiful healer's heart, our why, connecting to our why, remembering what matters to us most, and sending that light and love inward to every aspect of our being and outward to the world at large. And so it is. And you can cut that down, edit it down. It can be done in really 4 seconds if need be. I always enjoy spending time with you in these ways, so I do believe I went over the 30 seconds, but you get the idea. So let's have a little sip. I'm working with a cup of coffee. Usually I either have half-calf coffee or tea in my trusty Yeti. I hope you have something to enjoy. So I had some just incredible experiences working in the healing arts with nurses and with other healers and helping professionals this week. And I wanted to share a case story. So this is not any one particular nurse, and of course, no personal information is going to be revealed. But it occurred to me that if you're not in the master class or you're not in the academy, you may not even really be aware of what we do there and how beautifully profound that it is. And so each week it was my thought, my sense, to bring a nugget to you so that you too could experience the healing that is happening as directly or indirectly relates to you. So again, these are case stories. They're not any one particular person's story. No names will be used. And if I do use a name, it will not be their real name. This week I had the privilege of working with a nurse who had been in critical care for decades and is, like most nurses, completely overwhelmed, overworked, under-resourced, and on top of all of the nurse traumas that you have heard me write and speak about, was going through a major life event, continue to this day, is going through a major life event at home. And so it's a perfect case story for what I call the trifecta of trauma, where all of us as humans, we experience individual traumas. They could be acute, chronic, complex, developmental, neglect, traumas of all sorts in our personal life. And then we go to our occupational role, our professional role, as helping professionals, as healers, as nurses, and there is some unavoidable trauma, that exposure that just comes with the job. For nurses, that might be trauma from disasters. We're trained how to manage disasters. And it's also the secondary or vicarious trauma where we really do suffer along and hold space for and experience with those in our care their suffering. But what's really problematic, and it's driving people from the profession, is the avoidable trauma exposure. And so with this particular nurse, they were experiencing profound life event that was very traumatizing in their family system, being unavoidably traumatized in the ways that come with our role, and then having all the avoidable traumatization on top of that. And it's simply too much. It's simply too much for all of us, because we have physiology, we have mitochondria that cannot produce an infinite amount of energy. And so what happens when all these stressors and these trauma exposures come in, that the beautiful the way that our midbrain works is this threat detector process, and the midbrain signals to the dorsal vagus nerve that we can't keep up, we cannot produce enough energy, and we need to go into energy conservation mode. And this is where this nurse was like, I just can't do all the things that I normally do. I am struggling. And they took leave from work, and after several weeks of leave, I am not even missing my day job. I am not missing this particular person's a nurse. I'm not missing being a nurse at all. And I'm wondering if I should change careers. And I'm feeling like maybe I should. And I am, for anyone out there who feels that they need to change their role or their professional arc or exit the profession at all, I wholly support that. I do ask that before major life decisions, major career decisions are made of that magnitude, that we take a deeper dive into the nervous system and the trauma responses, these adaptations that we make over time, and make sure that we address any unhealed trauma that might be creating a reactive response versus a reasoned, regulated response that is made from a place of equanimity, which means independent of external circumstances, that we are grounded and calm and rooted in our whole self, as opposed in that ventral vagal tone where we're connected and we are aligned and we are very regulated and we're thinking very clearly, versus if we're in sympathetic kind of overdrive, or if we're in what this person is experiencing is a little bit of that freeze response, then we're not regulated in our nervous system by definition. And so it's really important to come back to your place, your window of tolerance is what it's called, and be in that ventral vagal tone, and then make those big important decisions. And so as we were having this conversation and just talking about nursing in general, we got onto this topic of this nurse was trying to explain to other people like how nurses have this way of knowing. When you walk in a patient's room, if they're about to turn the corner, if they're going to maybe hit code, or maybe they start their end-of-life transition suddenly, we have a felt sense of that. Or you're talking with, if it's July and you work at a teaching hospital, then and you might be collaborating with a resident or an intern who doesn't have a lot of experience, and they are prescribing A, B, and C, but you happen to know as a very experienced nurse that patient needs X, Y, and Z, and you just know it. But it's called direct knowing. And so we were talking about that, and like how difficult it is for a nurse who has experienced that, which is all of us, to articulate that to those who are not in our professional roles. And it was a beautiful conversation, because in fact, this is a physiological process. So what is happening, and it's available to every human on the planet, and it's called multiple ways of knowing, I talk about nurses a lot because I'm a nurse scholar, but it translates to other healing and helping professional roles, is that we have many ways of knowing. But we aren't taught those unless you get to PhD school. It's not taught in D&P school. It's not taught in RN school. It's not taught until you get to your doctorate studies, which is mind-blowing, because it is this intuition, this way of knowing that we have. Some people refer to it as their gut instincts, and that's indeed what this nurse was saying. It's like, I just have a gut instinct. And I said, of course you do. If we look at this through the lens of polyvagal theory, what is happening is you're walking into that patient's room, and what we have up here is our cerebral cortex, our prefrontal and frontal cortex, like the upstairs brain. And that's what we're using most of the time for making our executive decisions, of course. But then in the midbrain, in what is called the downstairs brain for simplicity, and in the midbrain is where that threat detector that process that Dr. Stephen Porges calls the threat detector, who's 24/7 surveilling not only the external environment but our own internal environment for cues that suggest that there is a threat to safety in some particular manner, or there is danger, imminent danger. And so when we as nurses walk into a patient's room, or if you're a therapist and you are walking into a client encounter, or if you are a Reiki practitioner and you are starting to open a session and you get, like right now, all the hairs on my body, the rector pili, are standing on edge, because this has happened so many times for me that I am going into that physiological space right now as I'm describing it to you. And you know that something is amiss, but you don't know why you know that it's amiss. Let me clarify that for you. The threat detector is picking up that cue. Perhaps that young intern is not making the right order for it, that's something that's contraindicated, or that this patient is on the brink of having a code and that you better get the crash cart ready, or that this person is not going to be able to receive the healing because there's a big traumatic energy that is coming up. So whatever that is, it is picked up by the midbrain, the threat detector process, and it is sending a signal through the vagus nerve. Now, for those of you who haven't had your anatomy and physiology in a long minute, that vagus nerve innervates all the way down through the heart, respiration, diaphragm, and all the way down through the gut. That's why it's called gut instinct, right? And so as I was talking with this nurse earlier in the week, and she's describing, like, how do I describe this to other people? It's a physiological process. We call it intuition, we call it direct knowing, but there is a biological process for this. And so what happens is the threat detector picks up that cue of danger, sends down to your gut brain, is what it's called, via the vagus nerve, to get you to notice this in a very felt and visceral way so that you can prepare to respond. And so this is what is called direct knowing, or intuition, or your gut instinct. And now you know the physiology behind that. And so it helps us to understand and to really know that we are trusting it. Just because our upstairs brain, right, we're maybe thinking of the tasks that we're doing, and we're thinking about the evidence that's going to inform our actions, and we're processing all the cues, and we're talking to the patient or the family or our client, and there's a lot going on in this executive function of our brain. But our autonomic nervous system, our midbrain autonomic nervous system and vagus nerve, that's our most primal and most evolutionarily advanced system that has kept humans alive over the millennia. So if you have ever been curious about what is that gut instinct, what is this, how do I know? Because when we know, there is no refuting, there is no arguing, because it is a felt sense, a deep felt sense of knowing. Then now you have an explanation for it. And that can really be accessed so much more readily when we are regulated in our nervous system. When we are in this sympathetic overdrive, or we're being shut down for energy conservation because our mitochondria literally cannot produce the energy to meet the demands. And so that is considered a threat by the threat detector, who sends a message down to that dorsal aspect of the vagus nerve and says, hoo-hoo, we can't keep up with all the stress and the trauma exposure here, too much for the system. And this was what was happening with this beautiful nurse with whom I was speaking, who was having that trifecta of trauma overload, and her physiology is saying, no, we have to you are in energy conservation mode, because that's a survival response. And so when we are outside of our window of tolerance, either in the sympathetic overdrive or in this energy conservation kind of freeze, then our direct knowing isn't as clear. Our spiritual connection isn't clear. There's a lot of static. There's a lot of staticky energy that makes it harder for us to receive the messages that are being sent from various ways of knowing, including what we're talking about today, the gut instinct, or the direct knowing. So I hope that this is a little nugget. It was a mind-blowing moment that I and this nurse had together. We shared. There was such a palpable shift in her energy. It was beautiful as she stepped into this awareness of, oh my gosh, that's what's happening. That's what's going on. Why isn't anybody teaching us this in nursing school? There's many reasons for that, and that's a conversation for another time. But that is why I am here, to be of service to you, to our profession, and to healers and spiritual seekers and awakeners worldwide. Please drop a response to the email, or respond to the email and said, loved the videos, let's do some more, or loved them, can you make them shorter, or didn't love them, please stop doing them, right? Because I'm here to serve you at the end of the day. So let's connect, let's converse, and let us continue to lean in and heal and transform together, from my healer's heart to yours. And until next time, Namaste.